So is Moses Atama ready for Usyk? Is Moses Atama ready for Usyk? Let's be honest. Moses Atama looked phenomenal against Dillian White. However, despite looking phenomenal, there's a difference between looking like that you could be potentially a great contender or potentially a great champion, and then being ready for what some people call one of the greatest champions of all time. Now, I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but what we can't really disagree with is that he's probably the best of his generation. He's beaten everyone. Tyson Fury, a great fighter with a great resume. He beat him. He beat Daniel Dubois, who again was coming on a 3-fight streak and, had developed his resume, became a world champion. He beat him. He beat Anthony Joshua twice. He beat Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua twice. He beat Derek Chisora. He has an extensive CV, not only at the elite level when it came to the cruiserweight division, but he has an extensive CV when it comes to the heavyweight division. And he hasn't only just competed with these guys, he's beaten all of them. And that needs to be respected. But Moses Atama is looking phenomenal. I was impressed by a lot of things against Dillian White. One of the things I was impressed by was the fact that Dillian White made Moses Atama wait. I think they said it was for 6 minutes. And for an inexperienced fighter who's going to be, headlining the main event, that could have played a significant factor. That was clearly an old pro's trick to try and rile up Moses Atama, to try and force him in making a mistake. But he was calm and he came out in the first round and he just delivered a phenomenal performance. It was a 3-phased attack which set up the demise. And the speed, the power, the delivery, it was all there. So Moses Atama is doing everything he can to look the part. But whether he's ready for Usyk is another question. First, there's some things that need to be fixed. In previous fights, I've noticed that Moses Atama is passive in the clinch. He is passive in the clinch. He will need to rectify that because Usyk, being a great strategist, will exploit that. So he needs to develop a more positive habit within the clinch. Also, we need to see Moses Atama face adversity. Now, there was a rumor that Moses Atama was knocked down in sparring. But this was a rumor. We haven't had clarification if this was true or false. And even if it was true, and even if he did react to that adversity and beat up the sparring partner from then on, yes, that would be a moment of overcoming adversity, but we need to see him face adversity under the bright lights and overcome adversity over the bright lights. And all the great fighters have done that. When you think of Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, and then you go back, you got your Larry Holmes, you got Muhammad Ali, Rocky Marciano, all these George Foreman, all these fighters have overcome adversity. And we need to see someone give Moses Atama a puzzle that he struggles to solve. And we need to see how Moses Atama reacts to the different puzzles that different fighters can set. Now, in fairness, Moses Atama is just passing the tests with flying colors. And the Dillian White fight, on paper, if you look at the resume of Dillian White, this was supposed to be a test, and it was a test, and he passed that test. But for him to be eligible from the standpoint of saying, okay, this is the next guy to compete and beat Usyk, he needs to have a larger CV. And that would need to be against, ultimately, if you would think who would make And when we talk about eligibility, we're not talking about in the rankings. I'm not sure where Moses is in the rankings. We're not talking about the official rankings. We're talking about unofficially. So who could he fight to make, because people are already really thinking that this could be a good fight, but what could make this fight even more, what could sell this fight even more, not only to the boxing public, but to the public in general? I think there's a few fights. I believe Tyson Fury, I don't know if he's retired or come back, but if he was to fight Tyson Fury and beat Tyson Fury, then that would be a massive qualifier. If he was to fight and beat Anthony Joshua, that would be another massive qualifier. But I believe that him and Anthony Joshua has the same trainer, so there's a conflict of interest, and it's very likely that that fight wouldn't happen. Of course, you have the Daniel Dubois fight would be a good fight, but considering that Daniel Dubois is just coming off a loss, it would probably be best for Daniel Dubois, who's now making a transition from one trainer to another, to take a fight to build up his confidence. But once he's built up that confidence, then a Daniel Dubois Moses Itauma fight could be another great name on the resume. It could be another great name on the CV. Also, if we're looking at actual qualifying situation for Moses Itauma, it would be good for him to fight a southpaw. Now, off the top of my head, I can't think of a southpaw that's at the elite level. I believe Zhilei Zhang was a southpaw, but he's of course retired, and of course is a totally different fighter to Usyk. But the Usyk puzzle is a southpaw puzzle, so that's something to bear in mind. Also, we'd like to see how Moses Itauma handles all types of punches, really. What happens when a fighter starts punching him to the body? What happens if he fights an experienced fighter that starts jabbing him to the chest? He actually made reference in a post-fight interview that he took a punch to the arm and it hurt. So what happens when you get someone who can take your punches, is jabbing you to the chest, is catching you with counter right hands, is nullifying your counter punches? What happens in that scenario? We need to find out. I remember Tyson Fury when Tyson Fury fought Oleksandr Usyk, he was able to land the short left hook and the right uppercut to the body. How would Moses Itauma fare against that combination? If someone was able to throw a double left hook, a double left hook to the head, how would Moses Itauma fare towards that level of punch creativity? If someone was able to go through the phases on him, will he still be able to maintain his composure? So far, Moses Itauma has shown some good boxing intelligence, but will he be able to maintain that boxing intelligence if he's facing adversity? And who would be able to bring him that adversity? Of course, you have, and I always forget how to pronounce the gentleman's name, Abel Caballero. He is looking like a very good fighter, of course. He retired Zhilei Zhang. He had a fantastic performance against Zhilei Zhang. I like Caballero has probably the best punch creativity in the heavyweight division right now. So he potentially will throw certain punch combinations at Moses Itauma that he would not be familiar with. It's interesting because Caballero typically throws the right uppercut to the head and the left hook to the body, but as the fight progresses, he adds to it. So he'll throw the right uppercut, left hook to the body in round 2, but when you get to round 5, he's throwing the right uppercut to the head, left hook to the body, and then he's introducing the straight right to the body as well. So he develops his punch creativity and he goes head, body, head. There's a variety and there's a punch output that would be difficult to deal with. And he's shown, particularly in the Zhilei Zhang fight, that he can adapt. He started the Zhilei Zhang fight by moving around. But then as the fight developed, he got closer, he got in the pocket, he got in on the chest, and he started to unleash an offense that simply Zhilei Zhang, an intelligent, hard-punching counter-puncher, despite having those credentials, he couldn't deal with it. And remember, he dealt with Joe Joyce, and he dealt with Joe Joyce when Joe Joyce was considered a formidable opponent. This was the Joe Joyce that beat Daniel Dubois. This was the Joe Joyce that beat Joseph Parker. And of course you have the Joseph Parker fight, and Joseph Parker is looking really good. And under the tutelage and guidance of Andy Lee, you could never rule out the chances of Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker has a tremendous trainer and is training in a phenomenal environment. I believe they have Ben Whittaker, Hamza Shiraz. So there's confident lions in the camp, so to speak. And when you're surrounded with winners, when you're surrounded by success, that gives almost like a demand. It gives an expectation for you to be the best that you can be. And it looks like Joseph Parker has really stepped into that in trying to be the best he can be. So he would be a formidable opponent, not only for his punch power, not only for his speed, but also for his boxing intellect. He will provide a challenge. So I think that for Moses to be eligible to fight Usyk, he needs to extend his CV, and his CV is looking really good, but he needs to extend it. He needs a greater CV. At the moment, he's not really qualified to make that jump. However, that doesn't deter the fact that he could be the next best thing. He's looking that good. And I think this is a testament to the training of Ben Davidson, because Ben Davidson is a tactician, similar to Adam Booth. He's a tactician, similar to the late Emmanuel Stewart. He watches opponents, he studies opponents. And that's very apparent when you observe his victories. All his fighters have a great pull counter, and all his fighters are very economic in their punching output, in the sense of they don't waste punches, and they punch hard, and they punch with precision, power, and speed. And again, he has a camp full of lions, and I think Ben Davidson deserves some credit, because I know he has been criticized a lot online, but this man has some serious credentials. And of course, he's guiding Moses Itauma. He's guiding Moses Itauma through the process. So it's almost like the answer is, it looks like he will be ready. It looks like Moses Itauma will be ready for Usyk, but he's not ready yet. He just needs to build upon that CV. It's almost like, metaphorically speaking, fighting Usyk is going for that CEO position for the job. And it's like, okay, you're a good manager, but there's a few steps here. There's a senior manager, there's a regional manager. You're not quite ready for the top spot. Not yet. But he's getting there. And another question as well will be the marketability of Moses Itauma, because Moses Itauma, similar to Usyk is he's comedic, like he's funny, he's charismatic, but he doesn't trash talk opponents. And Moses Itauma, he isn't a comedic person. That's no shade to him. He's a calm, composed individual. But Moses Itauma doesn't do his talking outside the ring. He does his talking in the ring. So it's very important that his team markets him effectively and markets this fight, because if he does build that CV, then the potential and the magnitude of this fight will be truly incredible.